Good evening. I'm Fundo Mabalani, standing in for Clement Manyatela this evening. It's great to have you with us on the SABC. Now, on the show tonight, we'll be joined by Gauteng MEC for Education, Mshuluzane, to discuss what is becoming a crisis in our schools. The surge of alleged food poisoning cases. The most recent incident, of course, involved 25 learners from Mshuluzane Mayisela Primary School in Bronkhorstspruit who were hospitalized due to suspected food poisoning. Later on the show, we'll speak to Kaizer from the SIU. Now, this year, the SIU has saved the South African government approximately 8 billion and recovered the highest amount in their 27-year history. Kganyago will explain how they've tightened their processes to ensure accountability for irregular administrative decisions. We'll also get his reaction to Mshuluzane Mayisela's claim that the SIU is a presidential hit squad. Then straight after that, we'll speak to NSFAS Administrator Freeman Nomvalo about student accommodation challenges and other issues facing NSFAS. We'll conclude the show with a resident from the Helen Joseph Hostel in Alexandra who will share her concerns about the increasing incidents of rape and robbery that have created fear among women living in that area. But first, my comment. So the safety of children is now a serious concern following the numerous cases of alleged food poisoning that we've seen. It's honestly alarming. We were still wrapping our heads around the now Naledi 6 children who died after consuming snacks. Then yesterday, we reported on 47 learners from Rapelejo Primary School who were hospitalized after eating expired chocolate. And then today, it's 25 learners from Mshuluzane Mayisela Primary School in Bronkhorstspruit who are hospitalized as well. If this doesn't warrant serious action, I honestly don't know what does. We're seeing MECs on the ground when an incident has been reported. They are visible. We can't take that away from them. I mean, just today, the MEC for Social Development was attending the memorial service of the 6th child. Good and well. But we need a coordinated effort across various government portfolios that will prevent such incidents from actually occurring. There can be no territorial behavior of any kind at this point where some say, don't overreach into the functions of my portfolio. Community safety, basic education, social service, health. Everyone needs to come to the party and even put pressure on labs to prioritize the release of the toxicology report of the Naledi 6 immediately, so everyone can start to draft some sort of a proper strategy to deal with this matter once and for all. We cannot fail children like this. It's enough now. So the question we're asking tonight is, should the Department of Education, at the very least, vet and regulate street vendors selling food at schools? You can send us your WhatsApp voice note on 078-459-1897. Remember to share your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from. And please keep those voice notes at 30 seconds or send us an X. Our handle is @face_the_nation SABC. All right, we start here. The Gauteng province is experiencing an increase in food poisoning cases, with 4 reported in October. The latest incident affected 25 students from Mshuluzane Mayisela Primary School in Bronkhorstspruit who fell ill after allegedly eating snacks from street vendors outside the school. Out of the 25 learners who were affected by the food poisoning incident, 22 have since been discharged after receiving treatment. Gauteng MEC for Education, Mshuluzane, is facing the nation. All right, good evening, MEC. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, MEC, these incidents are quite shocking, but most concerning is their frequency of late. Today was, of course, the memorial service of the 6th child from the Naledi incident, and now we have this new incident at Mshuluzane Mayisela Primary School. How concerned are you by this surge in alleged poisoning cases?
As a department, we're extremely concerned, as I greet you and your viewers tonight. We're really concerned because there seems to be a pattern of frequency of late, and that called upon us to come up with ways to really increase awareness. So we're going to be running an awareness campaign in our schools around food poisoning, and really taking precautions, teaching our kids to take precautions, not to just buy food anywhere. Be careful of foodstuffs. So generally a broad awareness campaign.
Mm-hmm. When we say MEC, an awareness campaign for children not to buy food anywhere, realistically speaking, some of these snacks that they're purchasing is all they can afford. So would the approach be to almost say to children, take upon yourselves the responsibility not to purchase from Bomama outside the school, or perhaps you also want an awareness campaign that brings them as stakeholders as well, because they are entrepreneurs making a living, to say perhaps they also need to be taught about handling food, if maybe they are contaminating it in any way?
Yeah, no, I agree with you fully. That's the whole purpose when I'm saying that an awareness campaign. Obviously, it's going to be an engagement. The schools have to take a certain responsibility. For instance, they are expected, as much as they vet people who actually sell in the school, the tuck shops, they need to take that active role, as well as those who sell within the proximity, asset proximity, especially immediately outside the school premises, to check, to vet those vendors, because we know that this is the only source of income for some of them. So, but however, we also appeal to them that really we can't have such an incidences occurring where our kids buy from them and then they fall sick, they get poisoned, they get these poisonous effects. So we want everybody, the stakeholders, to really play a role. That is for those mamas, because they're adults, but schools need to play an active role.
Have you issued that directive now, at least maybe to schools or SGBs, to say beyond vetting the official tuck shop that would be inside the school premises, you're now going to have to play an active role and vetting the ones within close proximity of the school and then taking them through safety protocols? Have you issued that directive now?
They will be getting a directive to the schools by tomorrow, I'm sure, because obviously it's from the head office. They are aware. But in terms of the vetting, they've already started. This is something that is an ongoing, that they are expected to actually do some form of an assessment on who's selling what to the kids close to the school. But more responsibility really rests upon those people who are selling, because they know where they get these products. And to a great extent, rather, they need to be held accountable. I mean, the person who sold our kids, the 25 children, the snacks, that person needs to be held accountable somehow, legally, legally, so that people understand that when they're dealing with food, especially to kids, to our children, because our kids are dying from these products that they're selling.
No, I suppose when there are consequences, it will serve as a deterrent for all of them to take extra precaution when deciding which goods to sell to these learners. But talk to us about the Mshuluzane Mayisela Primary School case. What facts have you established at this point?
Look, the good news is that all the kids are discharged.
All right.
Also, they're home now, which really, it was a relief to us as a department. So, but in terms of the vendor that sold to the kids, I'm expecting that the school should have taken some form of action to bar them from selling to the school up until they are able to demonstrate somehow that they are selling proper food stuff.
Have they given you an update to that effect, that perhaps the school has reached out, they've had a conversation?
No, they've not given me an update to that extent. But I know my schools that as soon as such an incident happens, they are the first to really act, because they know how serious these cases are, how serious this matter is to us as a department and to the public generally, poisoning or around food poisoning. So they would have acted. I know definitely, as much as I've not gotten a formal communication.
Now, many agree that there needs to be some sort of a coordinated effort across various portfolios. It's what I was saying in my comment a bit earlier. Is there any plan where all of you as government are looking to address this matter? Do you have those conversations, whether it be the health department, community safety, or is there a situation perhaps where others would be operating in silos to say, the education department needs to understand its limitations. You cannot go beyond this point. You would then be overreaching into perhaps what is the function of community safety. Are you guys working together as government?
Yes, definitely. We've started having engagement around it. But more importantly, there's an IGR aspect to it. So together with the local councils, the municipalities, we are starting to have an engagement more around putting pressure on the municipalities to implement their bylaws, the regulation. and that's expected of them. But also from our side, from the side of the department, ours is to create awareness. Every home has got a child, and we know that we are going to use this reach of children, teaching our kids and also the parent body aspect of it around the awareness to where they procure the food and the vigilance and this vigilance that we're expecting. Because it's kids that obviously you are picking up, but there are adults who are also dying from buying this food stuff. And it might not even catch the attention of the mainstream media or the public to a large extent. But clearly, there's food stuff that where they buy this thing, parents and kids, well, adults and children are being affected by this. So it's a comprehensive approach that we're doing as government. But at the level of the provincial government, we've already started speaking together with the Department of Health and Department of Social Development and Community Safety in terms of how best to have a comprehensive approach in dealing with this challenge.
Because it would be better resolved if there is that sort of coordinated approach. Because if you're going to create or raise awareness among the learners, you've got to have inspectors, though, that are going to these various stores where the children would reside. Because outside of school, you would have made them aware in school, but outside of school, at least they must be met halfway, where somebody's speaking to these tuck shop owners to say, ever so often inspectors will come. But then beyond this point, today was, of course, the memorial service of the 6th Naledi child. Everyone had, of course, been pinning their hopes on little Kganyago surviving to assist with the probe as to the cause of the other's death, but it was not to be. Now, granted, this is perhaps not your area of expertise, but have you been updated on the investigation thus far?
Look, the process, what I know so far is that obviously it's a priority case which the Premier has spoken to. So in terms of any other updates, I would suggest that we take it up with the Premier and the Community Safety or the safety of the SAPS to check how far they are with the investigation. Where we are as a department, really, it was quite sad. I mean, especially because it was on the day where we are burying So it was quite difficult. It is, difficult. I know that while the learners were trying to cope, then they get the shock. So we've been on standby to continue to provide support, psychosocial support that we provide. And we're monitoring the schools very closely, especially the classes that these learners were in, to see how the children are reacting. So, we are not just going to just pull out. We've come in, we've debriefed, we've spoken to them, but we're going to follow up more frequently up until we see that our children have really had it. It's quite sad, really, that primary school kids are burying their friends. I can tell you now that it doesn't even make sense to them what is happening around them.
No, it's honestly very tragic, but also quite commendable the way you've been responding so swiftly, because every time as journalists we're reporting on an incident, quickly the Department of Education is there, children are taken to various hospitals with ambulances. So I suppose it has been a very difficult time and testing time for the department. But yesterday your spokesperson spoke to my colleague Bongiwe, saying when it comes to Ekurhuleni, as a department, you have now become somewhat aware of not just food poisoning cases, but alleged suicides. Talk to us about this. What exactly do you know with some cases there?
Suicide is a big issue in our currently. It's not a recent phenomenon. It's something that we've been speaking about. We've had an engagement with the media to try to really spread the word and create an awareness. So we've got good NGOs that we've partnered with that work with us closely. But more importantly, we're experiencing, especially closer to exams, we tend to see a bit of a spike from learners that commit alleged suicide, because you cannot confirm up until the necessary authorized people are able to tell us that it is actually a suicide. But we generally see spikes closer to the end of the year, exams in particular. But we really as schools, we're looking at different initiatives beyond partnering with NGOs like SADC, which goes to the specific schools where we're able to identify that there's been attempts, been a couple of attempts, and those have actually succeeded in committing the suicide. So they monitor those schools, they go to those schools, they create awareness, they inform the learners where to get help. And we also have our own helpline in place that utilize so that learners can get help. So we really try to work around to ensure that we support these learners, especially when it's closer to exams, because that's when they receive a lot of pressure. And yes.
All right. MEC, thank you very much for your time this evening. That was Gauteng MEC for Education, Mshuluzane. Now, after the break, we speak to the SIU's Kaizer Kganyago. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. The Special Investigating Unit saved the South African government about 8 billion in the 2023-24 financial year. The SIU says this success is due to effective investigations and swift legal action. The unit achieved a record cash recovery of 2.28 billion, the highest in its 27-year history. The NSFAS investigation came to around 191 million by the end of the financial year. SIU spokesperson Kaizer Kganyago joins me in studio. He's facing the nation. Good evening, Mr. Kganyago.
Good evening, Fundo, and good evening to your viewers.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. So you have saved the South African government 8 billion in the 2023-24 financial year, and 2.2 billion of that is in hard cash that you recovered. Just break that down for us.
Yes, we have saved 8 billion, 8.4 to be specific. And the first part is the cash in the bank, which is the 2.28 billion that you're talking about. And then the second part, it is the 2.3 billion. It is monies that we would have saved before they are being paid. Because we cancel this contract before they are being paid. Therefore, we don't have to worry about taking them to court. And then the third part, I think, is about 1.6 billion. It's money where people acknowledge that they have done wrong and they don't have the money.
But they've committed to do so. All right.
They sign acknowledgement of debts, and then they are able to do that. And then the last part is contracts that we have set aside, which makes a total of 8.4 billion rand.
And which were the biggest culprits or the entities that you would have recovered the most money from?
It will be Eskom, it will be Transnet, and then it was NSFAS. Just imagine having over 190 million rand from NSFAS, which is money that was supposed to have been used for students who are deserving. And therefore, it was taken by students who did not deserve to have that. A child whose parents are billionaires and millionaires, they are members of parliament, they then still go to school with NSFAS when it is meant for poor people. Therefore, those are the big ones. If you look at Eskom, for example, you'll remember in the last financial year, we got 1.6 billion rand from ABB, when they overpriced at Kusile Power Station.
And they settled to pay back the money.
And they paid it back, and we gave it back to Eskom so that they can use it. Now we don't have load shedding anymore.
Now, you've also, among the investigations, you've been investigating maladministration and corruption in Mpumalanga. This is in the health department. And it's not the first time that you were there. How is that investigation coming along? And what exactly are the issues there? Because we understand they've been in the media for procurement issues.
Yeah, the last time we were there, we were dealing with a different department, which was Public Works. But now the new proclamation that has come deals with the Department of Health. And in that one is only one specific waste management contract that we are looking into, wherein the information that we got was very clear that the company that was awarded this contract was not supposed to be awarded, and they even got extensions of this contract even after. It was not awarded in a fair and transparent manner. We are still at the early stages of that contract because this proclamation came out 2 weeks now. And now we're just looking at it. But as I say, we start with preliminary investigation. Already we know what we are looking for. Therefore, it will make it easy for us to then get into it. Because in the past trenches of proclamation, there were 6 new proclamations and 2 extensions, including the 4th one.
Now, you've had to expand your capacity because now you signed a secondment agreement to actually conduct lifestyle audits in some of the government departments as well as state-owned entities. How many have you conducted in this financial year?
If you look at how this matter came to be, it was as part of the work that we do as investigation. when we reach a stage where we've got to now look at officials of government and their contribution in the investigations we are doing, we then do a lifestyle audit on them to understand those people that are living beyond their means.
All right.
And then that is how it happened. And then when the government department started seeing the work that we're doing, they then came and requested us to now do a lifestyle audit for them.
So not on flagged individuals, because from what I'm getting from you, before it would have been the individuals that you think to a certain extent would be linked to whatever matter you're investigating.
Yes.
Then you would just have to then audit their lifestyle.
Yes.
But now it's across the board.
Now, because government has made a decision that lifestyle audit needs to be done, especially for senior officials and the ones in SCM. Therefore, we started getting requests from government departments, public works, you get the process of this world and everybody else, the HDAs of this world. They are now coming to us because they believe in the methodology that we do. Therefore, it is now a new element in the work that we do, where we are now having to get people whose job specifically is to do lifestyle audit. Therefore, we have had to expand in that area of work, and we are doing well around it because we are helping government to say, if this person is in this department, and most of the people, it becomes very obvious. Yeah. You get to a department or Home Affairs, for example, these people are in lower levels. They don't want promotion. They don't go and leave. They don't do anything because they make so much more money with the bribes than they do with the money that they get.
But are you able to dig deeper? Because in such instances, we're having this conversation about the lifestyle audits. Many people would be sure to hide their assets with either relatives or individuals that they pick up on the street to say, I'm going to purchase certain things in your name. So how difficult is it then, in that respect, to establish what exactly someone owns or doesn't own?
We have got a methodology, and we are not going to divulge it because people will try and go around it. But the methodology that we have takes us to that because we are able to see even the things, because because we are an investigating unit, we have got access to certain things that normal people would not have access to. We are able to follow the money and trace where the money got in and where it went. Therefore, we also look around the people that are around you, and if your relatives, your children, because some of the people pay directly school fees to the school. Yeah. Therefore, we see all of those things with the methodology that we have, and we are able to say, you are living above your means, you must explain the source of this extra income.
Now, many have been commending you for the work you've been doing as the unit, but there are those that have criticized either the timing of certain investigations and the likes. And in particular, I'm sure you saw the exchange in Parliament, you were there, where Mshuluzane Mayisela of the MK party indicated that as far as they're concerned, the SIU is nothing more than a presidential hit squad. Your reaction to that?
We just reject that with the content that it deserves. And you could have seen even the examples that they gave. Let's just go to one example that he gave. He says, no, we announced our people of MK on a Wednesday and the president signs the proclamation on a Friday. Yeah. That is not coincidence. They are just targeting these people. That cannot be the truth. Because we would have done the proclamation months before these people were even members of MK. Therefore, and if he had
it was sitting on the president's desk.
But if he had looked also at the proclamation itself, you would see that the president signed the proclamation on the 16th of August. It was just gazetted on the 13th of September. By the time it's gazetted and we announce, the president would have signed it a month or so before. Therefore, that cannot be as a result of the announcement that happened 2 days before.
But for the benefit of those who might not be fully aware of the process that would be followed until the president signs the proclamation, because it starts with a whistleblower, comes to you, you do your preliminary investigation from there, there's a legal team to see if there's anything here. Just talk us through that process to that final point where the president signs.
Yes. The act of the SIU that established the SIU, it's clear that we can only investigate when there is a proclamation. And then what then happens is we get the mandate, or the people who give us the information, are the public of South Africa. They come to us and then we look at them, we evaluate the evidence that they give to us. When we are comfortable that there's something to investigate, we as the SIU prepare the proclamation. It is not done anywhere else. We do it, we then take it to the legal teams at the Department of Justice, who will then look at it, purely to check whether it falls within our mandate. And then the Minister of Justice will then recommend it to the President. Presidential legal team will also look at it, and then when they are comfortable, they sign. But let me hasten also to say, since the inception of the SIU over 27 years, there's never been any president who refused to sign a proclamation.
Even if that proclamation would lead to them having to be investigated.
A good example of it is former President Zuma, who signed a proclamation to investigate Nkandla.
But then what of those who believe that perhaps there would be delays in prosecuting, or at least there being the signature on that specific proclamation, that there would probably be some sort of a delay where you have started the investigation? Again, this is what some might be thinking, that an investigation would be started and then it's withheld. It's not sent perhaps to the Justice Ministry nor to the President, according to some, and only at the opportune time, then it would be signed and then the investigation begins. Your views on that? Because I'm sure you've heard that even on social media, people were making all sorts of allegations.
No, definitely. There is no such. We've got an obligation. When you come to us as a whistleblower, we've got an obligation to update you on where this thing is. Therefore, there is no space in between that we cannot do that. There was a delay that happened, not generally, not because of specific people at the Department of Justice. You remember, we are the ones who went public and said, we have got so many proclamations that are sitting at justice that have not moved for some time. And at that time, they were not even on the desk of the president.
And what was the reason on the side of justice that was given to you, why there were delays?
It was different reasons, among others, the staffing issues and all of that, because they've got to go through it.
Because they are a critical component as well. Because you say beyond doing your preliminary investigation, if you will, when it gets to them, they must then decide that this is worth actually taking to the president's desk. So meaning in that space where there were delays, would some be justified to think perhaps there was a delay for an outcome? Yes.
No, because the only thing they check it's whether it is in the mandate. And it is basically they are doing that job on behalf of the Minister of Justice, because in principle we are giving it to the Minister of Justice to recommend. Therefore, there would not be, for that reason, we checked all the time, because we check them all the time. And that's why now, when the new minister came in, credit to her, and the deputy minister, the first thing that they did was to say, bring all these proclamations, let me see what was the bottleneck. And you would have seen in the past month or two, we have had more proclamations than we would have ever had.
Which is quite heartening, because we're going to get a lot of money back.
Yes,
Mr. Kganyago, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's shift our focus to this story now. Universities and TVET colleges have been flagged as the main culprits contributing towards the late submission of financial statements of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme to Parliament. Higher Education Minister Nobuhle Ngabane has vowed to penalize the culprits going forward. NSFAS has failed to submit its annual report and financial statements to Parliament for several financial years now. The scheme says for the 2023 academic period, only 50 out of the 76 institutions submitted the required information. NSFAS Administrator Freeman Nomvalo is facing the nation tonight. Good evening, Mr. Nomvalo. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. You have for several years, as NSFAS, failed to submit your annual report and financial statements to Parliament. What exactly is going on?
Good evening, Fundo, and good evening to your viewers. NSFAS has not been able to produce financial statements for several years, and the biggest issue being that the reconciliation of information between institutions and NSFAS was behind schedule, going back to 2017. And that's the issue that we've been grappling with, trying to resolve in catching up with these financial statements.
Can you just elaborate? When you say behind schedule, what exactly are we talking about?
Well, the reconciliations had not been done and confirmed going back to 2017. And obviously, when you do those reconciliations, you don't just reconcile the total amounts that have been transferred from NSFAS to institutions. You've got to go down to the level of a student to know that you transferred so much for this student, and that ties with the student statement at the institution.
So have you been trying to address this backlog, if we can even call it that?
Yes, since the administration started, we've been trying to catch up. We've gotten all of the submissions now up until December 2022. For the information up until December 2023, 25 of the 26 universities have submitted, and 30 of the 50 TVET colleges have submitted. And the last university will be submitting tomorrow.
Mr. Nomvalo, this is honestly very concerning, because when we're talking about financial reports, this is a process or exercise to account for money that would be in your entity. So if we've got to operate in this way where you're only now at 2022, we do not have any sort of accounting for 2023, it's quite problematic. And we even heard the higher education minister saying that for her there's got to be penalties at this point. It is no longer acceptable. So what must happen? Because this is tough talk on her side, but you're putting a legitimate case here to say we come from far. We were behind as far as 2017. We're now at 2022, meaning you shouldn't expect from other institutions there'll be no financials.
It is definitely not acceptable. And it is a fault both of NSFAS as well as institutions. A fault of NSFAS to the extent that NSFAS did not have processes for doing these reconciliations on a regular basis. A fault of institutions to the extent that when we then are going to deal with this information, either because of the staff turnover and lack of institutional memory, it takes long to dig this information and get it up to speed. And I agree that going forward, while we have improved on our systems as NSFAS and on our data, we should be able to reconcile these quickly, and any institution that falls behind, whether NSFAS or an institution, should incur penalty for that.
And then to the costs of student accommodation. You are spending billions of rands towards private student accommodation, and the minister again, when speaking, said it's not sustainable. How are you looking to address this matter?
Well, the cost of taking students to university is definitely beyond that which the country can easily afford. So to that extent, we do need to make sure that we work with accommodation providers to find ways in which we make accommodation affordable. And to that end, in the last year, an introduction of capping of the premiums was introduced, and it came with some challenges. And now
because
we are starting...
The students, pardon me for interjecting, it was the students as well that complained that when you're capping in certain suburbs, it becomes a problem because it is slightly pricier and they need to stay closer to the university. So one would have assumed that in as much as there would be a cap, there would be that opportunity to be more fluid, where you allow for maybe a higher rental amount in certain areas?
Yes, there are instances in which such considerations are made, but the instrument itself was an instrument that came with some challenges, because those people with lower cost structures were now looking at that amount as a target amount to go up to, and those that are above that, their margins were squeezed. So it does create problems, and hence we are undertaking a study to understand the cost structure better and come with a fairer mechanism to regulate the rentals of student accommodation.
And then let's talk about the allegations of collusion at private student accommodation, in which we've heard and reported on where landlords increase rent for their gain.
Well, it is important that people that have got information to that regard bring the information forward. We just concluded now, beginning of September, a roadshow that we had all throughout August. We did hear some of these allegations in the roadshow. We have asked the people making the allegations that they need to provide the information so that we can hold the respective people accountable. At this moment, very, very few information has come forward. So we would really appreciate that those that have got the information to this extent, they do provide the information. It is not helpful to have allegations that are not substantiated, because it does taint the sector without the possibility of holding anyone accountable.
But
so really we would appreciate,
Had you instituted some sort of an inquiry? Because if somebody or a student brings you that lead, if we can call it that, then it's incumbent upon yourselves to then institute some sort of an inquiry, even if it's one case, because you could find actually this type of conduct is widespread, where you would have the students colluding with the landlords and then splitting whatever they got out of yourselves.
Absolutely. Where we have information, we are following up, and we are also following up. We've had some contacts recently of some other allegations, and we are awaiting that information. And we have the relationship with the Hawks to the extent that these are criminal in nature. The Hawks are ready to step in and investigate. So we encourage everyone to come forward with the information.
And then talk to us about the NSFAS ICT system. How's that coming along?
The overhaul of the systems will be a longer process. The challenges that we had faced in the past year relate to the stability of the information that we have. An example, a student would apply and then would get to a point where the funding decision has been made that the student is funded, and that status ought to stay like that for the life of that application, but it would change on a regular basis. That we have stabilized. And other matters that relate to the processing of the information for payment of accommodation providers, we've again improved the system. So what we're doing now is to fix it as we go along, but the bigger project that has to do with the overhaul of systems will take much longer.
All right, Mr. Nomvalo, thank you very much for your time on Face the Nation. That's NSFAS Administrator Freeman Nomvalo speaking to us. More interviews after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us on Face the Nation. So the question we're asking tonight is, should the Department of Education vet and regulate street vendors selling food at schools? Let's take a look at some of your tweets. Now, Ukolile Nzoyi says, good evening to all. Good evening to you, Kolile. I think that is a critical must. Let's remember here we're talking about young, innocent souls, and people should not risk the life of these important future leaders of tomorrow. From Kolile Nzoyi in Kukuletu. All right, Uyanda Benevolent says that must be done by local authorities such as the municipality. Otherwise, it's too much admin for the education department, which has serious problems on its own. EC activist Sifundo Mdemka says, Mfundo, after all what has happened, the vendors must be regulated now. I suppose that's what he's trying to say. They must understand children are at risk. All right, it seems a number of our tweets there agreeing that there needs to be some sort of intervention or vetting of these vendors, because at the heart of it is that this is risking the lives of young people. So most certainly they need to be protected. I believe we also have some voice notes. A lot of you have quite a lot to say. Let's listen.
Johannes Bosoga, unfortunately, the government is not doing enough. Only when somebody dies and then they do something. But now, when South African people act, they've been called xenophobic. So the same food that are being sold in the schools are coming from the Pakistani shops. So, and our people are trying to make a living as well.
Good evening, Mfundo. Yes, the Department of Education must do something before it is too late. Otherwise, people will take the law into their own hands, and vigilantism is the last thing that we want to see. Thank you very much, Peter Mailamachaba from Letswatla.
All right, some very interesting views there from Peter. But now let's shift our focus to this story. Residents of the Helen Joseph Women's Hostel in Alexandra are fearful due to increasing incidents of rape and robbery. The living conditions are dire, with overflowing sewage, broken toilets and leaking roofs. Now today, they marched to the Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi's office to deliver a memorandum of demands. Selina Nkuna is a resident at the hostel and joins me live on Face the Nation. Selina, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
You know, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Very disturbing what the women have been subjected to there. Just talk us through what exactly took you to the Premier's office today. Paint a picture for us of the everyday circumstances of women there at the hostel.
Okay. Helen Joseph Women Hostel in Alexandra. This building was catering for women who comes from different provinces working here in Gauteng. Previously, it was in good condition. And then this building has been there for 54 years. It started to be in operation from 1970. Until today. You can imagine, if it was a human being, we would be saying 6 years to go for SASA.
Yeah.
Yes. So now we are living in a very, very terrible conditions. Because the sewer line is old. It gets blocked now and then. We end up living and walking over the sewerage. Some of the sewerage flow even into the rooms. There are people who have to clean sewerage in their rooms every day.
My goodness.
Under normal circumstances. I mean, it's so disappointing because after 30 years, in Helen Joseph, we don't know what is democracy. According to the life that we are living, there's no democracy for us. And politicians, they use us for their votes because that building caters over 4,000 of women, exclusive of children. It's a very, very big community. And then now we have a problem with the municipality. Why we didn't take our memorandum to the municipality is because each and every year the budget is being allocated for Helen Joseph Women Hostel. But we don't see what is happening. The officials, they use contractors to steal from us. They can.
So there are never any renovations. There's never any sort of.
In my view, is no longer a renovation is required because the building is old. To renovate it, it's just it will be a waste of money. What is required is to demolish that structure and build family unit for us. Why we want to?
Because I was going to get to that point. That now, in as much as this was originally a women's hostel, exclusive of women alone, you are now parents, and some are actually married, and they would need that dignity to exist as a family.
And then the living condition, it separates parents with their children. You leave your children unattended. They end up engaging in wrong stuff. So now we want family unit for parents to live with their children, to live with their families. Because now it's for women. My brother cannot come in. I get sick, they cannot come in.
But there's also another issue of safety now. Because we're hearing that women are being raped, they're being robbed. Have you addressed this with the police?
Yes. Some years ago, there's an old woman who was raped in her room within the hostel. She was raped, killed, left half naked. Those who raped her, they even locked the room.
And then, but how did they gain access? So there's
that is the thing. The fence is no longer secured. We have a problem. Men do come into the hostel. They vandalize the hostel. Sometimes when you woke up, you find a pool of water. Why? The pipes have been vandalized, taken for recycling. And in our passages, some passages they don't have lights. We don't have lights even in the bathrooms, in the toilets. There's been vandalized. You have to go to the toilet at night. How are you gonna go there? You don't know where these people they hide themselves. We don't get attacked. We have women who work night shift. When they come back at night, they get robbed. They get being attacked within the hostel. And we do have a security. But still, they don't patrol at night. Because
but it doesn't help, as you say.
It doesn't help.
No, because the fence itself is not damaged.
Because the security itself, they don't have firearms. The criminals come armed. And then even when this man attacked us, we cannot go out because we don't know what they have. You will go out, you might get shot, stuff like that. Honestly, we as women in Helen Joseph, we live under stress. People, they don't understand sometimes the way we react, the way we behave. It's because we are stressed. We have been crying, petitions. We've been going for petitions. We have tried.
But what has been the response of the police? Because at least when it comes to safety, if we're going to for a second put aside the municipality and what is their role in ensuring that the pipes are working, but let's look at the police for now. When you've brought this to their attention, what do they say?
Remember, in South Africa, when you call the police, they will take 3 hours to come. And then the criminal will be gone by then. Yes, sometimes we do call the police, but it doesn't work for us.
And then now you decided to head to the Premier's office and hand over your memorandum of demands. Talk us through the demands that you put there.
Okay, in those demands, number one is all about the transformer. Previously in Helen Joseph, we were using gas stove in the kitchen. Then supplied by Egoli gas.
Yeah.
But it's no longer there. We are cooking in our rooms because they installed the plugs in our rooms. The mistake that they made, the transformer, the whole community of 4,000 was catered by one transformer. It blasts every winter. It's the 3rd year now.
Yeah.
And in the first blast, it was severe in such extent whereby the windows were broken, and in the upper floor, beneath the transformer, the 3rd floor, it goes up. Their doors were disorganized, they couldn't close.
My goodness.
Electricity is powerful.
People could have died.
Yes, but then the transformer, where the transformer it is, it doesn't affect, we are traumatized by the blast because it's terrifying.
So then was that?
We marched on this year, it blasted again. Because as I said, every winter we experience it.
So the transformer is one of the demands?
Yes, one of the demands. And then another thing, another thing, there is a land at K53, they call it a K53. It was earmarked for Helen Joseph, as we were told before.
For the family unit?
They said they were going to build the flats.
Okay.
Because remember, Alexandra have a problem of land. That site, they said they will build flats for us.
Yeah.
Even last year, we had a public meeting with our ward councillor. We were told the contract will start by May. It never happened. And we never get a report of what is happening. Yes.
So now you want them to expedite that process.
And then again,
start building.
We start building.
Yeah.
And then we want the hostel to be turned into family units. That is our main issue now. It's what we want. Because now we live like a prison. We are in prison. We lock ourselves during the day, during the night, because we are in fear. And then another thing, we need the security. They need to bring the security, an armed security, and that those people must come. Those who will be doing night shift, they have to patrol. We are not saying they must be standing all the night. No, at least they must rotate to minimize this vandalizing. And in those people knocking on our doors at night, at least some they might, if they know that security is patrol, they will no longer come because they will be afraid to be caught.
So who received your memorandum in the Premier's office?
At the Premier's office, there is a representative
that received it.
Yes,
and you gave them how long to respond?
We stated that within 7 days. We need the respond, and our intention is we're gonna take our cry further and further. We will also go to the president's office. We will also approach the Minister of Human Settlement. Why? Because we need solution, and we are there. We see the disaster that is coming. And then for last time there was a heavy rain. There is 4 blocks. This ground floor, D1. E1, F1, G1. There was flooding. They couldn't go, and the water get even inside their rooms. Even myself, I was affected. It took me some hours to access my room because there was water everywhere.
No, you're very brave, but what we will do is most certainly to pose these questions to them. You say you've given them 7 days.
Yes.
We'll see as soon as those 7 days lapse. If they've communicated to you, we'll take it from there to find out exactly what they plan to do to address these problems. Because
Yes.
you've put those demands to them. You want them to expedite the process to build the family units. We'll find out if that is possible at this point. You also want to be secure.
Yes.
And beyond that, you want them at the very least where you are now, that it's a more habitable place to live.
Not at all. If you saw, look, oh, it has passed. Yeah, but the pictures passed the day.
Yeah.
The storage.
No, it's honestly not a very dignified way to live.
Everything is broken. And another thing, previously, everything was quality. All the contractors, those come there to work at the Helen Joseph, they bring cheap material. Our taps were not like that. They bring plastics ones, which will work for 2 weeks and then it's broken.
Selina,
back to square
one.
Yes.
Selina, thank you very much for joining us. As we've committed, we will reach out to the Premier's office just to find out what exactly they'll be doing to assist the women at Helen Joseph. And that's where we leave it for tonight. Enjoy your evening further. Good night.
Thank you so much.
All right.